refreshing lunch and are feeling re-energized. Thank you for returning for our afternoon session. So for this session, we have an exciting lineup ahead, and I'm confident that the discussions and insights we share today will be both enlightening and thought-provoking. Your engagement is key to making this session meaningful, so I encourage you all to kindly participate and share your perspectives. So before we dive into the session, I would like to warmly request our chairperson and the speakers for this session on the dais. So our chairperson, Professor Pradeep P. Gokhale, a former professor, Department of Philosophy, Seven Tribal Pune, Pune University, and Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies, Sarnath, followed by speakers, Professor C. Upender Rao, Professor Sanjib Kumar Das, Professor Bimalendra Kumar, and last but not the least, Venerable Dr. Geshe Lobsang Dorjee. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. Okay, thank you. So now, without further ado, I would like to request Professor Gokhale ji to kindly lead the session, sir.
It is a very enlightening experience which I have been having since morning. It is largely practical, that is, sharing one's own experiences and problems which one faces while translating. And this sharing will certainly enrich all the participants, and particularly those who are actually engaged in these activities. Of course, these practical issues are also based in certain theoretical understanding, so it is a kind of practice in the light of theory, and theory also is something which is to be translated in practice. So how both are interrelated, that one has to understand. And now with this introduction, there are three papers. One speaker is Professor Upender Rao from Jawaharlal Nehru University, then Sanjib Kumar Das from Shantiniketan, and the third speaker will be Geshe Lobsang Dorjee from Sarnath. So I am told that each one will get 15 minutes for presentation, and it will be and when all the presentations are over, there will be question-answer session. So I request Professor Upender Rao to make his presentation.
Acha. Chair Pradeep Gokhale ji, and also Professor Das and Lama ji, and those who are sitting in front of me, the director of Tibet House, and respected monks and lamas. So I'm very happy to come to this conference. It is so perfectly organized, so that we are getting some knowledge out of this conference. And I'm very much thankful to Tibet House for creating such an academic atmosphere, which is very much required in presenting. So my topic is analytical study of Pali translations. When this conference was on the translations, I got few ideas, so I wanted to share these ideas through these few slides. For any translation in Pali, particularly I'm concentrating on the Pali, even though I had a lot of perspectives, a lot of ideas about the Sanskrit translations also, because I know Sanskrit. I'm teaching Sanskrit also in JNU. I studied mainly Sanskrit from my childhood. Then I studied Pali also. So, but particularly in Pali, now translations of the Pali. So, in order to understand the Pali translations, one has to know what is Pali, and then one can understand the problems of the Pali translations. We have to know what is Pali, And Pali is an ancient Indian language. First, we should understand that. And then it is important for understanding it is in the sense Pali. Pali is very important for understanding Buddhist culture and Indian history and religious and philosophical situations of ancient India. Pali is a beautiful language because if you read the canonical literature, many metrical literature, you will find so many beautiful gathas in Pali. Like Selo Yatha. Just today only I was quoting that. I remember that Selo Yatha Eka Ghano Vatena Nasamirati Evam Ninda Pasamsesu Nasaminjanti Pandita. That is what the Buddha gives definition of the Pandita. Normally, Pandita means we think that scholars, but Buddha says no, Pandita means he who is having balance Ninda Pasamsesu. So like that you will have beautiful poetry in Pali. That's why I wrote Pali is a beautiful language. It has many books, many texts in Pali language, very rich Pali literature. But unfortunately, Indians have forgotten this language. And now, when we think about the Pali translations, I have some peculiar and some ideas. I was thinking today in the morning just to leave about the paper because whatever ideas I am getting, I am just presenting in front of you. Why we need translations? Exactly. Why when we need translation and what is the need of translation? Who needs these translations? This is very important. You also can think calmly and just in meditative situation, you can get an idea that actually who needs this translation. Suppose if I go to France, let us think, I don't know French language, I need translation. Because without translation, I cannot understand anything there. I need translation there. If I go to Germany, I need German translations because I don't know Germany. That is why I need translation. And if you go to, that is what I wrote, if you go to new foreign lands, you need translations. Certainly, definitely you need translations. And if you think in that manner, in these lines, Indians need translations of Pali and Sanskrit texts? That is a basic question, actually. We need, I'm coming to the point, we need translations. That is why we have translations, but originally speaking, because all these texts are in Sanskrit and Pali, some of them in Prakrit also. But Indians do need translations. Unfortunately, they also need translations today. Because that is why in previous slide, unfortunately, we have forgotten this language. That is what I wrote. That means we are not studying these languages. Even though Pali was a spoken language in India, of course, there are some, we are not entering into whether it's spoken or we are not, in general I am speaking, it was spoken language. That is why it was collected in the Pali language. General concept let us follow because it was a language, it was used in ancient times. That means it was spoken language, it was very living language, it was called Magadhi. I mean, unfortunately, later on, the tradition and the studies of Pali have stopped. That is why we are now not able to understand Pali. And simultaneously, new Indian languages have emerged in India. That is why we are also translating Pali texts to understand. Sanskrit also same. Sanskrit also, once upon a time, it was a spoken language also. And that is quite evident by the Mahabhashya of Patanjali. And by several other evidences are there. It was also spoken. Otherwise, there cannot be such sutras in Ashtadhyayi, Durat Dutecha, Pratyabhivadani, Ashudri. These are sutras are there. So that means it was also spoken language. Magadhi also was spoken language. Because Prakrit is not the name of any language, it was the name of collective language. So many Prakrits were there in India. So they were spoken languages in India, and once upon a time we used to speak these languages. That is why literature is collected in that. But unfortunately, modern languages have come. That is why we need in translations. But actually, do Indians need translations? They needed in modern languages. But originally, what happened when this is a natural phenomena, but English translations and other translations have started for these texts when foreigners have entered into our land. So they needed to understand to Pali texts and Sanskrit texts. That is why they needed translations. So that is one translation. Translations of this Pali and Sanskrit texts in foreign languages. Mainly the great translations, Tibetan translations and Chinese translations, and any other languages also, German translations and French translations. That is okay, because as I told you, if we go to other country, we need the language. That is why they translated in their languages. But Indians also needed translations. That became the big question, and that also is a natural phenomenon, because it's a long course of duration of time we got the modern languages. That is why we needed translations in modern languages also. So now when we have the modern translations, we have questions actually. For some translations I wanted to show, but that is not so important. That later on I can show translations. What exactly we need for accurate translations? You see, when we translate in Indian languages now, Pali texts and Sanskrit texts, so far so many speakers have discussed about the same topic actually. How to translate these Pali and Sanskrit texts? So what exactly we need? This first we should know the language into which we are translating. Suppose if we are translating into Hindi, we need the Hindi language. And also the language from which you are translating, you should know that also. Suppose if you are translating Pali into Hindi, so you should know the Pali language also. And we need to have good vocabulary and the use of accurate words, for which we need to have thorough reading of literature from which we are translating. So thorough reading of the literature. Suppose if you are translating Pali text into Hindi or any other languages, so first you should have the thorough reading of the Pali literature. Only then translating of this Pali text will be easy for you. In the case of Pali, we need to have this literature reading, Pali literature reading first, and grammar also we need, and Prakriti Pratyaya awareness we need in Pali. And which is Prakriti and which is Pratyaya, this kind of awareness we have. And also structure of the language we should know. And sometimes the same word may have different meanings according to the various contexts. The word, for example, in Sanskrit we have very famous saying, Saindhava Manaya, somebody says. Because Saindhava has two meanings. Saindhava, one is salt, the other meaning is horse also. Horse, Ghoda. So it needs context actually. Saindhava, somebody asks you, bring salt, Saindhava Manaya. So somebody is eating and asks Saindhava Manaya, what you will bring? You will bring only salt, not the horse. So, it has, but the word has having two meanings. Because Saindhava is salt because it is coming from Sindhu. Salt is prepared from Sindhu. And horse because that horse is from Sindhu land. Sindhu land horses are very famous. That is why the horses of Sindhu are called Saindhava. So in this way, but now I wonder that can we really translate Pali words and convey their original meanings into foreign languages? This was already discussed just now. There are various words in Pali that often get translated into English but appear not to be so much helpful. Translations of terms of these ancient languages, Pali, must be must help us to understand the real sense used by the Buddha. Usually, we translate dukkha, for example. Let us take dukkha. Generally, we translate as suffering. Sometimes some people say stress, unsatisfactoriness also. But dukkha is best left untranslated. And because this is also one important thing, some important words, like previously there was a discussion about the nirvana. Dharma also is such a word. So better we use the same words into translations. So if you use the same word into translations, how can they understand? Because they have to understand, because understanding the meaning of word is not that important. Understanding the context, understanding the culture, understanding the meaning of the real meaning of the what Buddha is saying originally, that conveying, that is very important. That is why if you use original words, if somebody want to understand, and he can come and he can search and study what is the meaning of dharma, then he can understand that. But hurriedly, if we translate dharma as some righteousness or some religion or something, duty also, it has several meanings according to context, dharma word. And in that way, there is normally Pali translations are very easy, because if you know the other ancient Indian languages, you can understand Pali words very easily, because Pali is not so complex, because there are no sandhis, and there are sandhis, but not complex sandhis. There are sandhis, why not? But not very not like Sanskrit, because in Sanskrit we have very words, and sometimes we have the vidya, dudya, dudara, durdura, dari, dirgha, daridra, drumadrodreka, mahormi, medura, mada, mandakini, mandat. Like that, we do not have in Pali, because always we have assimilation and these words. So, but there are some texts which are not easy to translate. Recently, I found one manuscript, I translated it, that is Vajrasara. That is very interesting book. And Vajrasara is a comprehensive Pali work, and where the technique of chamatkara was used in that text. It's not ordinary text. It's a chamatkara poetry you can find in Pali. And that is developed in that, that was basically written in Lanna, in Thailand, Lanna dynasty. The text became very interesting with the literary talent. For example, I am taking one stanza. I could not show here, but I am just reading this. Yassa dasakkara. Yassa dasakkara asamvisu o apusabubhu. Like stanza is like this. Yasya dasakkara asamvisu lo apusabubha vachasa paguna tvathi manasa so sukham labhi. So this is the verse. So this verse is very difficult to translate. So because it's it is sometimes called acrostic poetry, or we call it very puzzling and something. It is a very rhythmic and it is chamatkara, we can say that. What actually he says here, the meaning of this verse is, the one who learned by heart the 10 syllables, yassa dasakkara, the one who learned the 10 syllables. What are the 10 syllables? A, sam, vi, su, lo, a, pu, sa, bu, bha. These are the 10 syllables. Vachasa pagunatvatho. What are the 10 syllables? What is this a, sam, bu? Actually, author says that briefly he writes, a means araham, sam means samma sambuddho, vi means vijacharana sampanno, Su means Sugato, Lo means Lokavidu, then A means Anuttaro, Pu means Purusadhamma Sarathi, Sa means Sattha, Bu means Buddho, Bha means Bhagava. So this is what actually author is writing like this. Yasya dasakkara asam visu lo apu sabubha, like this. Yasya dasakkara asam visu lo apu sabubha, because I could not bring that my spectacles. That's why I am not able to see. I am very difficultly, with great difficulty, I am reading this verse. I am not seeing clearly it. Vachasa paguno tvatho, and he gets what he gets because he, the Araham Samma Sambuddho Vijachana Sampanno. So this is that. And this is why actually this is all verses in this text are like this. So we had early translations, also later translations, and nowadays we have so many translations are going on. For example, in Andhra and Telangana, in Telugu also, so many books are translated. Many books are translated. Diganikaya, Majjhima Sutta Nipata, Dhammapada is translated into all languages already. But these texts also translated into Kannada also, they are translated. So the translations are going on now very well. But this kind of seminar will help those translators and all scholars. The procedure and the process of translation, so that hastily we cannot translate anything. So because translations are very important, but unfortunately, but one thing I can say, all our Indians, even though we have modern Indian languages, we are translating and we are getting the knowledge of this Pali and Sanskrit text, to try to go back to those languages. Pali and also they have to learn Pali and Sanskrit languages, because they can learn. Indians learn very easily if they want. No need of translations for them. So if you learn these languages, you can directly enjoy the literature from these texts. And also another very important thing I am concluding. See, if I have that concept from many years, I am not actually favorable to translations. If you translate anything into other language, you lose the original. You just, because people don't need the original text, we take the translation. So this also, Sanskrit and Pali translations may be harmed these languages, Pali and Sanskrit languages, because everything is easily available in translations. Why we need Sanskrit and Pali? That is why in India you will find many people, I want to learn Sanskrit, I want to learn Pali. Many people say, everybody says almost, but nobody learns. Only few people, everybody. If I say I am professor in Jain, oh, I want to learn Sanskrit, sir. How many days it will take time to learn Sanskrit? How many days Pali? But originally they are not trying to, because there is no need of learning of these languages. Things are available in translations, therefore we are not learning this. But Pali and Sanskrit are very much Indian languages. If you are not learning, who will learn them? So grammar is there, literature is there, everything is there. We can learn them. That is one thing. And the second thing is lot of Sanskrit Shastras, so many Sanskrit Shastras have been translated into Tibetan and Chinese. Great translations. But I am always wondering what happened to the original texts, original Sanskrit texts. So how they have disappeared. Somebody said recently, we were discussing, somebody said that first they have preserved in Tibetan China. Yeah, and so many days. And in course of time, they declined in course of time. I think, I don't know, this is, venerable lamas and scholars may enlighten me, but maybe they did not need them. That is why they kept like this and they were destroyed. or I don't know why, how they are destroyed. It is a large number of Sanskrit texts in Tantra and many other disciplines are not available now. So, but these translations, at least Tibetan and Chinese translations, they just helped us. Great translations. Due to them, we can understand there was such a great literature in Sanskrit. So these are all speculations and my ideas. Briefly, I could present within 15 minutes. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Upender Rao, for your comments and a descriptive account and some questions also which you have raised. Maybe some of them could be taken up at question answer session level. So I now request the second speaker, Sanjib Kumar Das, to make his presentation.
Gangi tu zenyer sungwe tawa thamje pangwe che dambe je ni tenzeba gotham de la chaaz. Honorable Chairperson of this academic session, Professor Gokhleji, Honorable Director of Tibetos, Venerable Geshe, Honorable Professor Gishingawa Sandenla, our former Vice Chancellor of the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies, distinguished scholars on the dais and off the dais, my brothers and sisters. First of all, let me extend my gratitude to the organizers of this conference for inviting me, and also for giving me an opportunity to share something about the paper which I have prepared. Before saying something about my paper, first, I think I must say something extra thing because in this hall I can see some young scholars and they must know about it. In the previous session, somebody raised a question and my description, my opinion will be as an answer of that question. You know, if we see any text in Kanjur or Tenjur, in the colophon, we find a line mentioning this text was translated by this Lotsawa with the assistance of this Pandita. So what does it indicate? I find this method wonderful. It means our traditional masters and Lotsawas already used to follow some wonderful methodology. You see, there had to be two persons. One was subject expert, another was the language expert. And the subject expert was not like an academician only. They were, he or she was an accomplished master. And these two persons were needed because recently, I will share my experience. Recently, I was going through a text. The translator translated a word. The text is related to the 6 yogas of Naropa. And there is a Tibetan term, Dongjuk. The translator used the term Gram Pravesh. So this is totally wrong. Here, although the term Dong means death, but here it doesn't refer to death. It refers, the term Dong also refers to village, but here it doesn't refer to village. It refers to death. So if these two kinds of experts are not assembled together for doing a translation work, this kind of mistake may occur. Another thing, recently I have been doing the Hindi and English translation of 105 Tibetan masters. So after completing the Hindi translation, I gave it to a Hindi expert to go make correction. So in Ladakh, you might have heard the name of a monastery in Wanle. So the expert omitted my word. Instead of Wanle, he has written Hamle ke baad. So this is very curious. If subject and language expert are not expert do not work do the work together jointly, this kind of mistake may occur. Regarding my paper, in the morning session, Dr. Shedup Tenzila also presented a very wonderful paper, and which is very similar to mine. So I don't think I have anything new to share with you. Anyhow, taking the opportunity by using my ignorant thought, whatever I could prepare, I shall try to share. Actually, my paper reflects the answers of 7 basic questions. Number 1, identification of Buddhist Sanskrit literature. Number 2, period of translation, place of translation, manpower. Manpower here refers to the subject expert and language expert. Code and mode of translation, tradition of translation work, and need and significance. So you'll find the general introduction in the 4 or 5 paras, and which contains the identification of Buddhist Sanskrit literature. Briefly saying, Buddhist Sanskrit literature are condensed or summarized into 2 categories, Kanjur and Tenjur. So Kanjur contains more than 1,500 texts, while Tenjur contains more than 3,000 texts. Regarding the second question, regarding the answer of the second question, it has already been mentioned in the previous session that the translation work began in Tibet after 7th century under the sponsorship, mainly the royal patronage of the second spiritual king of Tibet, Tisong Deuten. So the translation work carried on in 2 periods, early and later. So the early translation period continued till 9th to 10th century, and the later period began after 11th century. You may say after the appearance of Dorjee, Palden of Atish Dipankara. So regarding manpower, I have already told you. So in that the place where the translation work used to be done, there was a department in Samye Monastery, and in that monastery all the translation works used to be done, and the works were done by means of joint effort, subject expert and language expert. So code and mode of translation. Okay, so this is regarding the codification. It happened 3 times, you see. Now this is important. I think a question was raised by someone in the morning session. So the Tibetan translators basically gave emphasis on literal translation. Actually, there are 3 kinds of translation. One is literal, another one is meaning, and the third one is mixed. there is reason behind it. You see, if we don't make a literal translation, what will happen later on when the target translation will be needed to retranslate it into the source translation, we will lose so many words, and gradually our root source will be lost. So this is the main reason. Another thing, if a translator needed to use, you may say, use a unique word, he or she needed to get approval from the editorial board. Nobody was allowed to use a word which was made by himself or herself. No concocted word was not allowed to be used. So there was an editorial board in that translation department. So every translator was required to get approval if any word needed to be used. So the next para is about the catalog. So you see, particularly the second spiritual king of Tibet, Lobsang, he made this strict rule, as I mentioned earlier. Then another thing, in Tibetan translation, we find three kinds of translation. Yes. One is literal, another one is, we find three kinds of word. One is actual word, another one means the words which were translated by the translators, another one is corrupted. Corrupted means, for example, the Sanskrit word was corrupted. For example, Brahman, Mukta. So those words were corrupted. No, those were not translated by the Tibetan translators. And the third category was the mantra. Mantra was also not translated by the Tibetan translator on account of reason. Now the next, also these are some words which are not translated by. These are some words which we find in the Tibetan literature in corrupted form. Karpur, Gugula. So I have already mentioned it. Tradition of translation is actually the tradition of translation began with the inception of Thunmi Sambuta, the father of Tibetan scripts. After inventing Tibetan script, he, according to source, he translated 21 literature from Sanskrit to Tibetan. So after him, the translation work continued. The most important thing, the modern generation will always ask us, what is the need? What is the scope? What is the significance of translation? Do you have any scope of job? So let me share. I think there are several Tibetan boys and girls in this hall. They should know also. If we see, we'll find huge project from Tibetan to English, from Tibetan to Hindi, from Tibetan to other languages, particularly 84,000, ACLS, FEMT. They're spending trillions of dollars for this translation work. And you might be wonder that, like Tibetan translation, we will not find any other big project in the whole world. And normally I use 3 words, triple P. What will be our scope? What will be our what is the significance of doing translation? Number one is for the first P stands for preservation. Second P stands for propagation, and the third P stands for profession. So we can first thing, we can preserve our language, literature, and culture through translating the Buddhist Sanskrit literature. We can earn huge quantity of money. I think the Tibetan guys know that America, some organizations in America, they are giving $10 to $200 for translating 1 page of Tibetan text. So in this way, we can earn huge quantity of money, and of course, we have number of holy masters who are propagating this holy dharma in this whole world for bringing peace on earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sanjib Kumar Das, for bringing out many theoretical and practical issues concerning translation of Tibetan texts. Now, I request the third speaker, Dr. Rabling, Geshe, Lobsang, Dorjee, to make his presentation.
सर्वदृष्टिः प्राहनाय यदसद्धममदेश अनुकम्पा मुबादाय तं नमस्यामि गौतमं तं नमस्यामि गौतमं तं नमस्यामि गौतमं. Most respected chairperson of this section, my guru, Professor P.B. Gokhaleji, Venerable Geshe Director, Tibetan House, most respected Professor Geshe, former Vice Chancellor, Center for Tibetan Studies, all the speakers, all the eminent professors, all the staff of the organizers, all the participants all over the world, good afternoon to all. Thanks to Tibetan House, Geshe invite me and give me opportunity to speak in this conference. My topic is on an introduction of Sanskrit and Pali Tripitaka, available in Tibetan translation. I would like to read from main point here. The content of my articles is divided into 12. First one, a brief chart of the Pali Tripitaka, Buddhism in Tibet, establishment and the development of Buddhism in Tibet, process of Sanskrit texts translated into Tibetan language, translation of Kanjur and Tenjur, brief description on available Sanskrit original texts, interpretation and development of philosophy in Tibet, different types of translations in the Tibetan Kanjur and Tenjur, Sudra and Shastra Pali translated into Tibetan, Pali Tripitaka translation project, Chinese and East Turkestan Liu, Sudra and Shastra translated into Tibetan, personal opinion on the translation of the Sanskrit and Pali literature into other languages. I would like to read a little bit in the beginning, then I skip all because it's too long. First Buddhist council was conducted at Satapani Guha, Rajgiri, after 3 months of Buddhacharya Munis, Maparinibbana at Kushinara. According to the Theravada tradition, the great Vinaya practitioner Upali recited the Vinaya Pitaka, Ananda recited the Sutta Pitaka, where Mahakashyapa was the chief coordinator. It was expressly mentioned in the Mulasarvasti school, Vinaya Chudra, that the great Mahakashapa has also recited Abhidhamma after the recitation of the Vinaya and the Sutta by Upali and Ananda. The 500 Arahat who were presented there also accepted the recitations. The teachings were preserved orally by the Sanghaha. The Pali Tripitaka was transmitted to Sri Lanka during the region of King Ashoka, was initially preserved orally and was later written down on the palm leaves during the 4th Buddhist Council in 29 BC, according to the Theravada tradition. The similar teachings of Pali are found in the Mulasarvasti school in the Agama, the Chinese language, which is translated from Sanskrit. Now I skipped. Here I have introduced 3 Tripitakas. These are the Pali Tripitakas. This is the brief chart of the Pali Tripitaka: Vinaya, Sutta, and Abhidhamma. Vinaya has 5, Sutta has around 5,454, and Abhidhamma has 7. Total there is 5,466 Sutra, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. And these are the 15 Kutak Nikaya suttas. And this is the Tripitaka chart of the Mulasarvasti Nikaya. It is also divided into 3: Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, Abhidhamma. But Vinaya Pitaka is a little bit different, and it has 5. No, it has 7. And the Sutta Pitaka, we used to say Diga Agama, Madhyama Agama, Sanyukta Agama, Ekudara Agama, and Chudara Agama. These all are available in Chinese language. And Abhidhamma, it is 7, but it is not same as Pali. There's one thing I introduce you. There's one Prajapti Shastra, and that it has 8 chapters. We Tibetan translation have 3. That is Lok Prajapti, Karma Prajapti, and Hetu Prajapti. Now I'll read a little bit about Buddhism in Tibet. When religion was there in Tibet, even during the region of the 27th Empire of the Tibet, at the time an Indian scholar named Sudatta, along with his translator Matichitta Rakshita and Thisi from Khotan and East Turkestan, reached at the place of King Latodor. Those well-wishers tried to introduce the Buddhism to the king, but due to the linguistic barrier, Buddhism could not be established by them. Then those well-wishers presented 4 Buddhist sutras and 3 symbolic objects as gift to the Tibetan Empire. According to the famous book Manikampam in Kadam Kakulma, which are mentioned in the Tibetan language, the 4 sutras and 3 symbolic objects are as follow: Prana Puraka Shadavandana Sutra, Arya Karanda Vihu Nama Mahayana Sutra, Arya Pratita Samudapad Nama Mahayana Sutra, and thus Kushala Sutra. The 3 symbolics are: first, small stupa made by gold or crystal, holder block of the Arya Avalokiteshvara mantra, and third one is mantra of Pratita curve on the stone, Yadhamma Yedu Prabhava. Now here, this is how the establishment and the development of Buddhism in Tibet. I want to skip here. I don't want to read all. It takes time. And this is the Ganjur, and it has a Ganjur, Deke Ganjur, Chone Ganjur, Peking Ganjur. All these are there, and Kruya Ganjurs. And the translation of Ganjur, the huge translation work is not only the highest level of translation in human history, but also the largest number of the translation from one language to another. This is universally accepted fact. Ganjur, that is Buddha's word, translated into Tibetan language, are collected in 108 volumes, which contain a collection around 1,500 sutras, which assert the deep and profound philosophical teaching of the Buddha in 3 training of the wheels, including the precepts of the monk and nuns and the performance of ritual and tantric practice in particular. These are profoundly incorporated the 10 topics. So this is 10 topics: Vinaya, Prajnaparamita, Avatansa, Ratnakuta, Sudra Vargaha, Tantra Vargaha, Paratantra, Dharani, Kalachakra. Total there is 103 volumes and 1108 texts. And beginning Kanjur is not same as Dhege Kanjur. It was completely opposite. Tantra in the beginning, Tantra, Janaprajaparamita, Ratnakuta, Avatansaka, Sutra, Vinaya and Dhruva and Vinaya and catalogs. It has around 107 poti and 1037 texts. And these are all the palm leaves of the Kanjur editions preserved in Tibet. Vimala Kirtinide Sutra critically and edited Sanskrit manuscript and Tibetan editions we have published. And then translation of Tenjur. Tenjur, that is scripture written by Indian masters, translated into Tibetan language, are collected in the 225 volumes, which have collections around 3,500 texts. If we look at it from the subject point of view, apart from Buddhism, philosophy, justice, and spiritual practice, there are also collections of many general subjects such as medicine, art, grammar, poetry, verses, ethics, drama, etc., which are based on 18 topics. These are 18 topics. Sudagan, Tantrika, Prajaparamita, Madhama, Sudatrika, Chidamatra, Abhidhamma, Vinaya, Jatakaha, Lek Parikatha, Pramana, Shabda Vidya, Chikitsa Vidya, Shiva Vidya, Iti Shastra, Vishwa Vidya, Adisha Referenceto, Sudalipi. There are 214 poti and 3,228 texts. This is speaking Tenjur, same as same subject is same. The number of the texts is here 225 poti and 3,962 texts. It has a 724 text extra comparing to the Dhege edition. And this is some Madhyamik Avatara Bhashya, Sanskrit manuscript and beginning editions. This is a Mula Madhyamika Tika by Acharya Bodhipalat. We have critically edited 2 chapters. The process of Sanskrit text translated into Tibetan language. I will read a little bit from the beginning. Many rules were made for translating Buddhist terminology and the philosophical scriptures in Tibetan language for the authenticity of the translation, so that there is no problem in the bringing the accuracy of the words and meaning in Tibetan translation. Therefore, bilingual Sanskrit Tibetan dictionary we have prepared. There are 3 famous dictionaries available in the name of Mahavidvati, Madhyavidvati, Kvalpavidvati. More than 10,000 words are stored in these 3 ancient dictionaries. Using these dictionaries as the basics, Indian scholars and Tibetan translators generally completed the translation works. In order to translate it verbatim from the original Sanskrit languages, the form of each root, suffix, and prefix of the Sanskrit words were brought into Tibetan language, so that etymology of the Sanskrit words could also be explained accurately. I just jump the brief discussion on the available of Sanskrit original text. From the Vinaya, we have only 2 texts available in Sanskrit, and from the Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho 3, and from the Chudra, what called, it has 5 texts available in the all the most of the Parjaparim Sutras available nowadays. Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho we have 3, and Ratnakuta we have 5 texts available in Sanskrit. Rest of all, there's 20% available in Sanskrit nowadays. Interpretation, development, philosophy in Tibet. I will read a little bit in the beginning. Tradition of interpretation developed on the basis of Buddha's teaching is very important. It emerged on the basis of morality, concentration, and wisdom. Now I will run out. And there's I have found out some kind of translation I find. Now I will read here. Different type of translation in the Tibetan Kanjur and Tenjur. Last 30 years of my own experience, I have found around 10 different types of translation used in our Tibetan Kanjur and Tenjur by Indian Pandita and Tibetan Lobsang. The 10 different translations are phonetic translation, Confucian translation, direct translation, meaning translation, literal translation, skip or letter translation, mix or range translation, partial translation, perfect translation, mistranslation, and wrong translations. So this is phonetic translation, like Palasha, Shing, Palasha, Shing, not otherwise. Place, you or Nasi like this. Padma, Medapama like this. Jadi, Me Jadi like this. Patliputa, you Patliputa like this. Confucian translation is Varanasi for Komujik, Ramagaram for Tatoyi, Kashmir for Khaje, Avanti for you, Magadha for you. Direct translation means Buddham Sharan Gachami, Sangha Chapcho, Dharma Swang Gachami, Chol Chacho, Sangam Sharan Gachami, Gindil Chapcho. And meaning translation is Buddha for meaning translation means Buddha for Sangye, Dharma for Che, Sangha for Gindi, Ratna for Kunjo, Bhagwan for Chomden De. Now run away. Little bit. Now here this direct translation. Sharaka Paru the Chemba, Tongda Java. Shar Sasika Pajaparamita. This is direct translation. And skip translation with Om Mani Peme Hum, Munimuni Mamuniaso, Taratutaturasaha. And mixed translation means Mam Tawat Aneni Yadi, Vridam Kushalam Bavinju Prasad Vegaha, Atha Marsam Dadureva Parshid, Paro Abnain Mato Abi Sartako Ayam. So this is here. All this Tibetan translation is rearranged. This is a mixed translation. Now partial translation means Jambudeep, Shariputra, Mongolputra, all these are half Tibetan, half Sanskrit. Now this is the best translation I have seen. Namastare Ture Vite Tutare Bhai Nashni, Ture Sarvanash Datare, Swahakare Namastute. Now here you see Chaksel Namas, Tare Tare, Nyurma Ture, Vire Pamo, Tutare Bhai Jigba, Nashni Selma, Ture Sarva Dungin Jibe, Da Tare Dwama, Swaha Swakare, Swaha Akare, Ige Kyola Dudo. Kyola means they, Namastute Dudo. This is best translation. Now this is a mistranslation. For example, I will read out here. In refer to the act of expressing the different meanings instead of providing the exact terminology as in Sanskrit. For example, Sanskrit Amanaskara should be translated in Tibetan Ayila Cheba. Contemplation of letter A in mind, but mistranslation A as a negation, it was translated as non-completion Yila Cheba. You will find out this one is Ayila Cheba, Imbe Yila Cheba. In that, so like this continually in all this Tibetan translation is a mistake. These are now I will show you a little bit about the Sajja Kunga Geshe has given some examples in terms of the gate for the wise. It has given some Saraswati, Bhagarath, Godavari, Narayan, all these translations made in Tibetan mistake. Now Sutta Shastra Pali translation in Tibetan. I have found some 50 Pali Sutra in Tibetan Tripitaka. And I will read a little bit here. In the beginning of the above list, I have added 13 Pali Sutta. They are translated by the great Tibetan translator Theravada and Mahayana, who visited in India in 13th century and met the Sri Lanka great master Anandashiri. They both translated these Pali Suttas, which are in the Tege Kanjur at the end of Paramita section. There are more than 100 of sutras cited in the commentary of the Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho composed by Acharya Shamadadeva, who are much closer to the present Pali Sutta. Many sutras I have identified and given the references of each in the commentary of the Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho by Chimjambeyang. Pali Tripitaka translation project. On many occasions, His Holiness Dalai Lama has instructed translate complete Pali Tripitaka into Tibetan language. Thus, under the direction of the Yangtze Rinpoche and Professor Geshe Samdela, former Vice Chancellor of Center of Tibetan Studies, Pali Tripitaka translation project was constituted a few years earlier. The 7 illumined students of CHITS were selected for the Pali Tripitaka translation. Rinpoche has instructed us, among the 3 Tripitakas, we have to translate Sutta in the beginning. Thus, we have selected Dig Nikai and distributed sutras to the translators. Last year, we have submitted first draft of 34 Dig Nikai Sutta, 40 Sutta of Majjhima Nikai, catalog of complete Pali Tripitaka and Pali daily prayers to Yangtze Rinpoche, Secretary, Office of His Holiness Dalai Lama. It was kindly released by His Holiness Dalai Lama on the 26th September 2023, Dharamshala, and bless us with his warm heart. These are the ceremony photos. Chinese sutras now will run what is available, and Lee sutras available in Tibetan translations. There is around 18. Now this is the last one. Personal opinion on the translation of Sanskrit and Pali literature in other languages. The main aim of conducting this conference is to find out the solution of 7 different points to discuss on the norm and issue of the translation of the Sanskrit and Pali Tripitaka in other languages. Thus, in this regard, I would like to submit some of my personal views as follows. First, selection of text is very important and the translation should not be missed anything from the beginning of translation. The selected text should be beneficial not only for the scholars, but also should be helpful for the common readers. Second, the norms of good translation depend upon the selection of a text. If the text is easier to understand by the common people, the translation should not be in a literal translation. If the selected texts are on the philosophy or unique subject, they should protect the each and every words and use as much as common words as possible instead of using bombastic terms. The third, translation system is changing day by day. The process of translation has not remained as before. Hence, classic translation should be slightly changed and new translation should be incorporated if necessary. Fourth, should interpreted.
Please conclude.
And now this is the last one. Finished. This is last, only 1 minute. Interpretation should be translated or translation proceed interpreters. In this regard, the translation should not be influenced by the certain word, understanding or interpretation. He, she shall always be wise enough and should not go under any pressure. Thus, interpretation should be earlier by understanding the complete concept of the text. Fifth one, particular of the original classic terms created a problem not only for the understanding the meanings, but sometimes it is not suitable for that particular context, but still protecting the same words. Thus, we should find a suitable words against it and replace the same. The main purpose is easily to understand the readers without any problem. Some Sanskrit terms exist in that particular language which cannot convey intended meaning should be replaced. Secondly, religious and technical terms in the Sanskrit or Pali understanding through the Christian culture does not fit for them. Hence, one should interpret according to its technical terms. In some case, on the basis of Tibetan and Chinese translation, many texts were translated into the English or any other Arabian language, which are regarded as authentic translations. But later, when original Sanskrit texts were discovered, it was found that many meaning and terms did not quite fit in that particular language.
Don't read out, please.
Okay. Now, last one. Thank you. Sixty Samuja of Arya Acharya Sandideva and Acharya Chandra Kirti Prasannapada Sanskrit original and Tibetan translation are not matching each other in many places. Sometimes large number of Sanskrit paragraphs are missing in the Tibetan translation. Sometimes large number of Tibetan translation are missing in the Sanskrit original. In this kind of case, I think it is due to different editions of the text reached in Tibet and what we are holding here. Bhavata Sabha Mangalam. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for imparting very important information about the translation activity of Pali and Sanskrit Tripitaka into Tibetan, which has already taken place and which is going on. So I understand that many speakers must have experienced the shortage of time when they wanted to speak more, but I had to stop them or curtail their speech. So I'm sorry for that. Now all the 3 papers are open for discussion and questions on all the papers are welcome.
Thank you, Namaskar. I'm not a scholar of translation, but I'm very interested in history. My mother is a retired professor of literature at University of Delhi, and she has studied linguistics for her MPhil. So I've grown up studying and learning a little bit about it, and my dad was a writer. So short story, what I'm seeing is, the Britishers, when they were coming into Tibet, like there's, of course, James Prinsep, who translated the pillar, Ashoka pillar, James Prinsep. I didn't see much reference to the contribution of the European scholars, because there were many Europeans who came, and in this region from Afghanistan down till Tibet, they traveled and they did a lot of translation activity. In fact, like I said, Prinsep was the first person who brought. So do you have any other names of Europeans? Because we cannot dismiss their contribution. We have to acknowledge and respect that. Are there any other famous or other kind of European scholars, could be British, Germans were there in Tibet, who also did similar work, sir? Any of you respected sirs? Thank you.
There are so many, actually. Your observation is very correct, madam. So many British people, British scholars, you can say, translated so many texts that we had to recognize these translations. What you are saying, that is true, because they did so lot of work. German translations are also there, but English translations are also there. You see, now sometimes I wonder, so many texts in Pali which are available now on internet archives and in other sites. All important texts are already translated into English by great scholars. Those scholars, they have contributed so much. They spent their life for this translation. It was not easy for them. That is true. That whatever your observation is very, very true. And there were great scholars and German scholars also, French scholars also. So without the efforts of George Cedes, now it was very difficult to understand the entire Cambodian Sanskrit inscriptions. So he had a lot of contribution, George Cedes, and later other French scholars also. So similarly, we have great German scholars who wrote about the Pali also, Pali language and literature, Guy Grierson, all this. So we had to contribute, we had to recognize them.
May I add something to your question? Is that actually, I am just going to add Madam questions and what Professor Rao has said, that there is a book called Western Contribution to Buddhist Studies. Okay, a wonderful book. And in that book, if you want to know the Westerns, what they did, especially to Pali studies, Theravada studies, you have, that is a simple book. And the first, to just mention one more important thing is that the first Pali text edited and translated in Europe was by Viggo Fosbull. And he translated in 1855 Dhampad with Latin translation. And the important of that translation is that the Dhampad edition was in Devanagari. Initially, they used Devanagari edition, Devanagari script. Later on, they started adopting Roman, and now Roman is the standard script. But around 1855, you will see the contributions in Pali studies. And most of the time, we forget about the French scholarship. French people did a wonderful job, especially for the Mahayana Buddhism. And in one name, if you want to remember one name, you have to know the translator of Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho. The French translator of Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho? Poussey was a priest. He was a French priest. And he spent around more than 40 years to learn Chinese. And he translated from original Chinese to French. That time the Sanskrit text was not available, and he translated it. After on, when the Sanskrit text was found, then we came to know that his translation was as it is true, as it is accurate. Then Acharya Narendra Dev, he translated that French translation into Hindi when he was in Hazaribagh jail. So our translator people did like that work. So we have to, a lot of examples.
Even Bodhicaryavatara was first translated into Russian by Minayev, before English translation, I think. First Minayev translated into Russian Bodhicaryavatara, long ago. Yeah, Russian. It was translated into Russian, Bodhicaryavatara, Minayev.
And this entire discussion in the terms of the schools, for example. So generally 3 kind of schools were there. One was Franco-Belgian school, one was Anglo-German school, and third was Leningrad school. So these three scholars, like Sharbatsky was related to Leningrad school, who was dealing with Buddhist Pali literature, as well as mainly he contributed to Mahayana literature. If we talk in the terms of institution, so the first Harvard Oriental series was established when Dharmanand Kaushambi, father of great D.D. Kaushambi, he went to Harvard and he worked on Visuddhimaggo, which was later translated by the name title of The Path of Purification, and another translation, The Path of Purity. So from there, Harvard Oriental series released a lot of Pali text, not only Pali text, actually Upanishads, Shatpath Brahmana, for example, a Mahayana text. Then 1881 Pali Text Society was established in London. So, and the third, Sacred Book of East, how can we forget Max Muller edited Sacred Book of East, 50 volumes. So these, and of course, even V. Fosbol was French, who translated Dhammapad and after that Sutta Nipat and all. So all these scholars were associated with certain schools, and many of those, they established their own institution like Pali. Nobody can forget the contribution of Pali Text Society, which is still working, and all the, so, and many scholars independently, they worked like somewhere like, even I would like to include some scholars of Indian religion like Mirza Eliade. He was not directly dealing with the Pali or Buddhist studies, but he made, as a scholar of history of religions, he actually coined the term history of religions. Before that, it was comparative religion word term was being used. So those things are there. So that if you go through the school, so you can get the entire list and all. Okay, thank you. Yes, sorry for interruption.
Thank you.
There is another question.
My name is Tashi. My question is basically on translation from Tibetan to English or from Sanskrit into English. What is happening today is everybody is translating in their own way. For example, klesha, some people translate negative emotions, some people translate obstacles, some people translate like, so different ways they translate, and it's difficult to come together. Ancient time, Tibetans found a way to have a fundamental principle. If you are translating Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Buddha, you must translate Sangye. There is no other way to translate, because that is the principle, that is the rule. So do you think we can work on that to translate on any other language? It can be in Hindi, it can be in English. So if that is not happening, then automatically translation itself is becoming problematic. So that is one thing. And nowadays what is happening, retranslation is not happening. Like if I translate Bodhicharya Avatara, I will not give you second people who will work on my translation. I will try to sell, or I will try to do something on, with my translation. But ancient time, for example, Dharmakirti's work, Brahmanavartika, translated 4 times. So they didn't have any problem if the second person come and work on my translation and correct. They are happily, agree with each other. So that can happen, or do you think, is there any way to come together and work together? Thank you.
You have made very important points, I think, Tashi. I mean, on many terms are problematic, and they are translated in different ways, and therefore certainly the scholars of those languages and Buddhist studies, they should come together and work specifically on certain terms which are in a way problematic. I mean, for example, now can we say that, how to translate the term dukkha is an important issue, because the word dukkha itself is used in Pali and Sanskrit in different ways, in different senses. It is not always used in the same sense. For example, when you say dukkha as Arya Satya, you may translate it as suffering or whatever, but suppose dukkha Vedana, Sukha Vedana, Adukha Sukha Vedana. Here Dukkha is an adjective and not a noun. So the term Dukkha as adjective and noun should be distinguished. Jarapi Dukkha, Maranampi Dukkham. So here the word Dukkha is adjective. And there you cannot say Jara is also suffering. Death is also suffering. Suffering will not be the correct translation of the word dukkha there because it is an adjective and suffering is not an adjective, it is a noun. So, many such terms.
Jara is not suffering?
No, no.
Acha, then.
It is, you can say it is unsatisfactory. You have to make a distinction between noun and adjective. And the word dukkha is used in both ways, in Pali as well as in Sanskrit. So this distinction has to be kept in mind. Similarly, when you say, dukkha vedana, it is, you can translate it as painful because sensation can be painful or pleasant or neither painful nor pleasant. But when you are talking in general terms, that is everything that we experience is dukkha, there everything is not painful. So there it is a kind of philosophical comment on the nature of everything. It is not just reporting an experience. So in this way, many terms, klesha, for example, one of the issues is that many of these terms are used in non-Buddhist context, non-Buddhist traditions. The word klesha is used in non-Buddhist tradition in the sense of pain and so on. And therefore, it is likely that one may be tempted to translate those terms in Buddhist tradition in the same way. So that temptation always has to be, one has to avoid that.
Sir, I sometimes I think that one day we have to stop these translations, I think.
No, not at all.
Because we had to go back. Because we had to go back to originals because always you see he asked the same question.
Translators should go back to the original.
Yeah,
Not everyone. Everyone cannot. So
it is not
everyone
easy.
on translation.
It looks very strange, but we had to try at least to understand the originals. That is what I meant.
You can make a general appeal that go to the original. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question.
So this will be the last question.
Yeah, it's more not about a question, I guess it's a request. First, I would like to say my name is Sabina. I came from Delhi University. But the thing is, I'm not from India, and unfortunately, I don't understand Sanskrit. And I'm from Russia. So, yeah, I would like to the man just said the thing about translation to Russian and English languages. So if it will be possible to, I would really appreciate it so that in our country also people will be able to hear about Pali literature and from its roots. So if really here is any way of getting a translation into at least English, me and whole our country, Russia, would really appreciate it. That's more of a request of not a question. Thank you.
Team, Russian scholars are doing translation, and one of the Russian scholars is translating Vibhanga, the Abhidhamma text. So there are Russian scholars. Don't worry about that.
And
if you want English translation of the Pali literature, Pali Tripitaka, all the Pali texts are available in English translation. Easily you can download it.
also, just to share that the director of Tibet House, who's taking all these classes, there's now direct Russian translation as the teachings are going on in Russian.
Sir, one thing, sir, I just would like to ask to the speaker. Sir, you have just mentioned about a text called Wajir. So, Wajir Sara. So, are you doing editing the text or what's your work, sir? Because as I know, Javier Snake did PhD on this text already in 2019, and later on PTS published the text in 2021. And the text was written in northern Thailand, as you said, Lana. Lana is a place, or Lana period you also call, by Ratnapanya in 16th century.
No, actually, my text was not that. Bajrasara that is already translated into Khmer. So when I was there, this Vajrasara is published in Khmer. So we have worked on that for so many years.
No,
And then,
Vajrasara in Khmer is the available in Pali text, available in Khmer script.
no,
Isn't it?
translated into Khmer, Vajrasara.
Translated in Khmer language.
Yes.
You mean Khmerian language?
Published also, I have book.
Yeah, that is the addition. That is the addition. But already we have a lot of manuscript of this Vajrasara, and there is also commentary. I mean, the explanation you just explained here, that was the commentary of chapter number 1, verse number 15. Yes,
That is a commentary also. Vajrasara is having Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho and Vajrasara.
Vajrasara and Vajrasara
has two
Tika.
texts. Vajrasara is one text, and another is Abhidhammatthasaṅgaho. I did not translate, or I did not work on Vajrasarasaṅgaho. I translated only Vajrasara. That is published in Khmer, and when I was there, I was teaching Sanskrit and Pali in those to university students. So one of my students brought that book to me, and we have worked on that. And Vajrasarasaṅgaho is very, very nice actually. That is different. Not different, but it is along with the Tika. And this Vajrasara, we collected some verses from that Vajrasarasaṅgaho, and they published it. So my text is based on that.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all the speakers and the audience also for contributing to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for such an interactive session. We sincerely appreciate you all taking the time to share your extensive knowledge with our audience. Your expertise were truly appreciated, and I hope it is insightful and valuable to everyone. So thank you once again. Now I would like to request our Professor Pradeep P. Gokhale to kindly present the souvenirs and khatas to our speakers as a token of our gratitude. So Professor C. Upender Raoji. Professor Sanjib Kumar ji. Professor Sanjib Kumar Das ji. And last but not the least, Venerable Dr. Geshe Lobsang Dorjee. Thank you all. Now, before I conclude this session, I would like to convey my sincere appreciation to all the respected speaker and chairperson, Professor Gokhale ji. Now we will have a 20 minutes break for high tea, and then we'll resume with our most anticipated session of student panel discussion, for which my colleague Ms. Pemberton-La will be moderating, and will be chaired by Venerable Professor Kaveri Gil Tensi Wesemengila. Thank you all.